framing the problem in Buddhist terms. If you ask Buddhism why life feels hard, it does not point to fate, luck, or punishment. It points to a pattern the mind keeps repeating. The tradition names the problem with one compact word from Pali: dukkha. People translate it as suffering, but it is wider than pain. It is the feeling that what we have will not quite hold still. It is the rub that appears when we try to make experience deliver a lasting guarantee. It is the strain that builds when a moving world meets a mind that insists on control. Buddhism lays out this situation in a simple arc called the Four Noble Truths. First, there is dukkha. Second, dukkha has a cause. Third, dukkha can cease, or at least loosen its grip. Fourth, there is a path that trains this change. Our focus here is the second truth, the cause. The cause is not hidden in the stars. It is local. It is a set of habits in the way attention grasps, defends, and pushes away. The two core terms are taṇhā and upādāna. Taṇhā is craving. It is the urge that leans toward what seems sweet, leans away from what seems sharp, and leans into fog when life feels dull. Upādāna is clinging. It is the tightening of that urge into ownership and control. Wanting a kind word is human. Demanding that the world provided on our schedule is clinging. Wanting an afternoon of ease is human. Insisting that no one interrupted is clinging. The turning point is not the presence of desire. It is the must that tries to arrest change. Buddhism is often caricatured as pessimistic. It is not pessimistic. It is practical. The Dhammapada keeps saying that mind leads the way. Train the mind, and the flavor of a day changes, even when the weather does not. The early discourses say the same thing in longer form. You can verify this for yourself. You do not have to sign a creed. You can test what happens when craving tightens, and what happens when it relaxes. So the problem is not life in general. The problem is the way craving hardens into clinging in particular moments. That is the doorway into everything that follows. Lens 1. Dependent origination as a causal map. The early teachings draw a map called paticca, samuppada, often rendered as dependent origination. The map is not a superstition. It is a description of momentum in the mind. It says that experience arises from conditions. Shift the conditions, and the experience shifts. One branch of the map is especially useful in daily life. Contact brings a feeling tone. Feeling tone is the mind's quick taste of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. From feeling tone, craving rises. From craving, clinging tightens. From clinging, a sense of becoming forms, called bhava. The mind creates a small world around the clinging. From that world, strain appears as dukkha. When craving is strong, the links between these steps feel instant. When mindfulness is present, the steps become slow enough to see. Notice what this map does. It gives you levers. If you cannot change the initial contact, you can still study the feeling tone. If you miss the feeling tone, you can still meet the craving. If craving has already tightened, you can still refuse to build a personal identity on top of it. Weakening any link weakens the downstream links. That is why the Buddha's training is workable. You are not asked to control outcomes. You are invited to adjust conditions right where you stand. This map also prevents two common mistakes. The first mistake is fatalism. Dependent origination refuses the idea that things are fixed. The second mistake is blame. The teaching does not scold you for having a human nervous system. It simply says, watch the chain and learn where to nudge it. When people first hear dependent origination, they worry it is too technical. In practice, the map is as simple as this. Feeling pulls. Wanting leans. Gripping hurts. Identity freezes the hurt. The art is to meet the pull with clarity before it freezes into a story about who you must be, or what others must give. Lens 2. Craving and clinging explained from the inside. To understand taṇhā and upādāna, start from the mind's 3 common moves. First, the mind chases. It says, when I get this, then I will be okay. This is craving toward pleasant feeling. The tradition sometimes calls this kamma, taṇhā. The first taste is real. The fade is also real. When we mistake fading for failure, we chase harder. Second, the mind armors. It says, if I keep things exactly like this, then I will be safe. This is craving for being, often named bhava, taṇhā. We grip our roles, our views, our routines. The grip rights rules the world never agreed to. The tighter the grip, the more friction we feel, because the world moves. Third, the mind erases. It says, if I get rid of this, then peace will return. This is craving for non-hospice, being, called vibhava. Taṇhā. We push away feelings, people, or facts. Pushing can pause the discomfort for a moment. Then the discomfort returns with interest, because pushing does not resolve causes. All 3 moves are understandable. None is a moral flaw. They are strategies that worked just enough in the past to get repeated. Suffering grows when the strategies become non-negotiable. That is the shift from craving to clinging. The inner language changes from prefer to must, from I hope to I demand, from this is painful to this should not exist. At that point, the mind begins to organize identity around the demand. That identity is what the early teachings call becoming. Why does clinging create pain so reliably? Buddhism answers with 3 short insights called the 3 marks. Anicca is impermanence. Conditions shift. Bodies age. Moods pass. Plans meet other plans. A demand that reality stop moving is a demand against the structure of the world. Dukkha is unreliability. Even refined pleasures cannot carry the weight of a promise to satisfy forever. When we fasten our peace to them, the fastening itself becomes uncomfortable. Anattā is not self. It does not mean you do not exist. It means experience is not built on a fixed inner core. What you call a self is a living pattern. When clinging tries to make that pattern absolute, conflict appears. Not because the world is cruel, but because we are treating a river like a statue. Seen this way, the cause of suffering is not mysterious. It is a mismatch between demand and design. The solution will not be found in a louder demand. It will be found in wiser design. That is the pivot from clinging to practice. Lens 3. Why release is possible. If suffering arises with clinging, what does its easing look like? The early teachings use 2 words, nirodha, 0, 5, and nibbana. Nirodha means fading, or cessation. The fires of greed, aversion, and confusion cool. Nibbana means quenching. Imagine a lamp that burns because oil keeps feeding the flame. When the feed runs out, the lamp goes quiet. The world does not disappear. The burn disappears. This is not numbness. It is not indifference. The texts constantly pair clarity with warmth. The brahmavihāras are the 4 heart trainings that make this explicit. Metta strek, or loving, kindness, karuna, or compassion, mudita, or appreciative joy, and upekka, or equanimity. Practiced together, they prevent release from turning cold. They keep the hand open while the heart stays involved. A wider view from the Mahayana tradition supports the same point. The Heart Sutra says, "Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form." Emptiness does not mean nothing matters. It means that things do not stand alone. They arise from conditions. Because things are not fixed, love can move with them. Because things are interdependent, choices have consequences. Release is possible not because we escape the world, but because we stop insisting that the world be a sculpture of our preferences. Notice how this rescues effort from despair. If experience is conditioned, then skillful conditions can be cultivated. If grasping is learned, then letting go can be learned. If the heart can close, it can also open. The path does not ask you to defeat life. It asks you to participate more wisely in the way life actually functions. Ceasing the cause. How the path targets craving and clinging. The Noble Eightfold Path is often listed as 8 items, but it is helpful to hear it as 3 braided trainings. Wisdom, or paññā, ethical steadiness, or sila, collected attention, or samadhi. Each strand directly addresses craving and clinging. Wisdom includes right view and right intention. Right view understands that grasping at what changes creates friction, and that actions have consequences. It sees the 4 Noble Truths as a working map. Right intention aims the mind toward release, kindness, and harmlessness. This is the inner commitment to stop turning preference into law. Wisdom does not float above life. It informs choices on the ground. Ethical steadiness includes right speech, right action, and right livelihood. These are not score-keeping devices. They are stability practices. When speech is honest and kind, fewer fires are lit. When actions avoid harm, fewer apologies and cover-ups are required. When livelihood does not clash with conscience, nights are quieter. Ethics reduces the number of spark points that inflame craving and clinging. The Sigalovada Sutta speaks in this simple householder tone. Choose good companions. Care for those who depend on you. Arrange your affairs so panic finds fewer open doors. None of this is sentimental. It is structural. Collected attention includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Right effort guards the mind. It prevents unhelpful states from taking over, weakens those already present, encourages helpful states to arise, and sustains them. Right mindfulness, as taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, knows the body, the feeling tone, the mood, and the patterns that come and go. It sees the chain before it hardens. Right concentration steadies attention long enough for insight to matter. Without steadiness, the mind chases. With steadiness, the mind can look closely without flinching. 2 supporting practices run through everything. Daṇhā, or generosity, is a direct antidote to clinging. Giving undoes the reflex to hoard. It shows the heart that sufficiency is not the same as possession. The brahmavihāras, already named, keep the training warm. They are not decorative. They make release humane. How does this target the cause? Craving leans on the promise of lasting satisfaction. Wisdom exposes that promise as fantasy. Craving feeds on agitation. Ethical steadiness quiets that agitation. Craving surges when attention is scattered. Collected attention gathers that scatter and gives you a place to stand. At each point, the path is not scolding you for wanting. It is retraining how wanting is held. People sometimes ask whether the path erases desire. It does not. It refines desire into aspiration. Aspiration wants goodness without the must that chokes the world. It aims for clarity, kindness, and steadiness, and it treats results as information instead of verdicts. That shift is already a taste of release. Practicing the cause, a one-week experiment in clarity. For the next 7 days, use a simple rhythm you can remember without notes. When a plain fact begins to turn into a personal verdict, notice that instant and name it softly in your mind as hinge. No blame, just a small flag that says this is where craving tries to become clinging. Right after that, give yourself 3 brief reminders. Changing, unreliable, not fixed self. You are not reciting doctrine. You are pointing attention back to the kind of world you actually live in. A moving world. A world where control helps in small circles and hurts when it pretends to rule everything. A world where the self is a living pattern that can relax. Then tend one condition you can touch now. Speak the kindest true sentence available, or leave the unkind sentence unsaid. Offer something small and real, such as time, or attention, or help, or money. Sit quietly for 5 minutes and feel body, feeling tone, mood, and pattern. Keep one promise you made to yourself this morning. Let one opinion soften by a notch. Do one task to completion without switching. Any one of these is enough. Each one refuses to feed clinging. Each one votes for an identity that is less brittle. In the evening, write a short note. Today, I noticed the hinge when. The reminder that helped most was, the small condition I tended was, keep the tone gentle. Keep the scope human. Aim for 3 hinges in a day, and 3 small actions, then 1 brief review. That is enough. What should you expect? A little more space between feeling and grip. Old habits that still pull yet loosen sooner. Some edges that feel sharper at first because you are not covering them with hurry. Small satisfactions returning because you are not demanding that they last forever. Fewer inner headlines and more workable steps. These are signs that you are addressing the cause where it lives. If you want one image to carry through the week, use this. The mind is a hand holding a rope. Clinging is a fist that squeezes until the palm burns. Release is not dropping the rope and walking away from life. Release is loosening the fist until blood returns to the hand. Then you can hold, or guide, or let go without injury. The world remains the world. The hand is different. Closing reflection. The teachings you have heard are not exotic. They are basic Buddhist grammar. Dukkha names the friction. Taṇhā and upādāna name the cause. Paticca. Samuppada explains the chain. Nirodha and Nibbana describe the cooling of the fire. The Noble Eightfold Path is the training ground where this cooling becomes a lived skill. The Dhammapada, the Satipatthana Sutta, the Sigalovada Sutta, and the Heart Sutra provide the tones that keep the path clear, practical, warm, and wide. In the end, Buddhism does not ask you to believe that suffering has a cause. It asks you to watch the cause at the speed of your own breath. It asks you to notice the hinge, to touch the marks, and to tend one condition. It asks you to use your life as the lab. If the fire burns less when you practice this way, you will not need anyone to convince you that the map is accurate. You will feel the difference in the weight of your day. That is the measure that matters. Not perfect calm. Not a life without change. A steadier hand. A kinder voice. A mind that can move through a moving world without turning every step into a test. When the cause work is done even a little, the struggle softens. And the path, which once sounded like a demand, begins to feel like a way to walk.